Welcome back, everyone. This is the Lend Me Your Ear podcast, where we talk about all things EAR, the American School of Recife. I'm Peter Klam. I'm the superintendent here at EAR, and I'm sitting here today with Fernanda Dillon, who is our secondary principal. We're going to talk today about a topic that is often discussed. I think schools all over the world are wrestling with this issue. And April just happens to be anti-bullying month. And so we want to talk a little bit about bullying, what we see at EAR in terms of bullying, and how we try to tackle this issue. Fernanda, let's talk about bullying first. And just, I think it's a term that gets thrown about a lot. And so just understanding what we're talking about when we're talking about bullying, I think will be really helpful for folks. So can you kind of give us a definition of bullying?
Yeah, it's a word that's used more than it should be, and I understand why. When we're parents and somebody teases our child or hurts their feelings, we get hurt too, and we say, oh, my child has been bullied. But bully is defined by intentionality and repetition, and then there needs to be a power dynamic. So between students, because it's a similar power dynamic, and maybe between adults, but not between a teacher and a student. That's not bullying. When we say, oh, the students bully the teacher, the power dynamic is the opposite. So that's another example of where it can be misused, but it needs to be repeated, it needs to be intentional, and we really need to do an investigation that's careful and really listen to everybody involved to define if it's really bullying or not yet.
Gotcha. So, I mean, how big a problem is it at EAR? What do you see?
I worked in various schools, and I also went to school. I was bullied as a child, and I was teased, and I think I probably teased some people, but we remember more when we feel hurt.
Right.
And it happens in every school. It happens in every neighborhood. It happens in families as well, with cousins. And I think at EAR, we have wonderful students, and nobody's all good or all bad, and they make mistakes too, like in any other school. So in my experience, when I compare bullying at EAR with other schools, it really needs the same attention, and it happens here as well. What I like about EAR is that we have a program to take care of the students.
I mean, it's developmental. It's just part of what happens. As kids grow, they're figuring out themselves. They're figuring out their boundaries, and sometimes, in figuring those things out, how do I relate to you? How do you relate to the kids or to the people around you? You pass over those boundaries, and sometimes when kids do that and do it repeatedly, because that's part of bullying, it winds up becoming that thing, that big capital B bullying piece.
Yeah, and their brains are developing, and especially in middle school, they're so young, they're going to test boundaries. And I usually tell parents, 7th grade is usually the hardest time where they test the most boundaries in relationships. And then as they mature, it does get better. And if we have interventions that are effective, loving, caring, and objective in those age groups where relationship issues happen more often, then the children grow to be responsible citizens and kind and display the values that we practice here at EAR.
It's funny because you talk about middle school being the thing, and of course, you watch all the high school movies, and you've got the football jocks who like bully the geeky nerds or whatever, and that seems like that's sort of the cliche, but really it's that middle school group where they're, because so much of the boundaries, so much figuring out their boundaries happens in middle school, that's where you often see it.
Yeah, and I think the building blocks we really work on as they're tiny little humans. It's important to start addressing it early. But we also have I think, a cultural piece that's not only in Recife, not only at EAR, not only in Brazil, where I think we need to pay more attention to the boys because there is a culture that says boys don't cry. You need to be able to solve your own problems, and when they're that young, what they really need is intervention from adults and skill building and purposeful lessons to help them with the skills that they need to have healthy relationships. Because we also see many grown adults teasing each other and hurting each other's
Sure.
feelings, and I think it's because they haven't learned it when they were younger.
So let's talk about two things. I want to talk about first. Let's talk about prevention, and like the classic phrase is that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? Let's talk about what we're doing, particularly in middle school, but kind of across the secondary, to anticipate. That's I think I'm translating from the Portuguese there, but that's okay. To get ahead of the problem, to try to cut it off at the pass, so that we're not seeing bullying as often. And then when we see it, let's also talk about that cure. What do we do when we're faced with a situation that we determine meets the criteria that you set forth, that is bullying? So let's do prevention first and talk about what kind of programs do we have. We're trying to sensitize kids to the other kids around them, and stopping bullying before it happens.
Yeah, so building a community where we really know each other is number one. If you know what your classmates or your teachers value, their strengths, and you have fun with them, you learn together, then you're way less likely to tease someone that you really know. So building relationships is not something that we want EAR to happen by accident, but we want to set systems in place where students build relationships. One of them is more visible. We have spirit days, we have fun events. Our elective classes are small, and the students, they learn music together, computer science together. They create an yearbook together that builds community. They get to know each other by working with different people. In the classroom setting, we have a lot of workshops with the teachers on how we support students with relationships. You mentioned this month is anti-bullying month. We're going to have a workshop for the teachers and for the after-school teachers on what do you watch for and how do you set your seating chart. Where are the students going to sit, so that they are sitting with different people and getting to know them. Because if I never talk to you, but we're working on this really cool social studies project together, then we're going to develop this bond in our classroom. And then when we see each other at break, I can be like, hey, leave Peter alone. He's a cool guy, and help each other in that way.
Yeah, I was thinking about those seating charts because that's something that you implemented this year, isn't it? Or
last year when I arrived, yes.
When you arrived, you said, and it's something that I think doesn't necessarily get out there in the community, that this is a strategy that's happening, and people don't necessarily even associate that with things like bullying and building positive culture and things like that. But you asked teachers to not allow students to group themselves when they're sitting at different tables or when they're working in small groups in their classrooms. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we read articles about it together. We did trainings. We have our learning support teachers collaborating with teachers on who sits with who. So I did ask teachers not to let students choose their groups.
What happens when students choose their groups?
Yeah, so when they choose their groups, we often, I'd say most of the time, have someone being excluded. So let's say we have a student who is struggling in a certain subject, and students don't want to work with them during a project. That could happen. we have students with neurodiversity, which is a strength in our community where our students learn to work with people who are different than them, have different needs than them, and then they usually could get excluded if students are choosing groups.
Right.
And then I also think about our incoming students who come from other countries, who are returning to Brazil, who are from Recife but never studied at EAR. Because one of the wonderful things about our school is most of our students are together since they're in pre-K, tiny little humans, and they're super tight community. So when somebody comes in new here, we have to really work as adults and work with the parents on welcoming them. And then if I'm choosing a group, I'm going to go with who I'm comfortable with, who I know. I'm not usually going to take a risk as a preteen and a teenager to work with somebody that I don't usually talk to. So when teachers are choosing groups, they're thinking about different abilities, they're thinking about skills, where the students are coming from, they're considering language, and they're grouping students carefully and purposefully so everybody has productive lessons.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, if students group themselves, one of the unintentional consequences is that it reinforces hierarchies. And when you're talking about bullying, one of the three criteria that you gave was an imbalance in power, and one of the ways that power can be can lack balance is when you have social hierarchies. So the more we reinforce those social hierarchies in our classrooms, the more likely we're going to put students in situations where bullying happens.
And you're using very helpful language that our students need to learn as well. So we just did a workshop for all 6th, 7th, and 8th graders on group dynamics based on Miss Wiseman's books. And we taught students about hierarchy. So if we have someone in a group that's a target, we should never have that, because everybody is kind of going against that person, and that's really hurtful. And then you could have students who are following somebody's behavior that they don't agree with. How do they get out of that situation? So by teaching students language on group dynamics, we are trying to empower them so that they make healthy decisions and they can be their own best selves and not follow somebody in certain situations.
Yeah, you mentioned, I just want to put a plug out. You mentioned Rosalind Wiseman. She's the author of Queen Bees and Wannabes, and also Masterminds and Wingmen. She is coming to EAR, coming to Recife to our school next semester, so we're really excited about that. She's going to work with our students, she's going to work with our teachers, work with our counselors, and also we'll have a night where she works with our families and really talks through those power dynamics that you see in schools, in social groupings, and how we as different communities within this school, how we can help to manage those and mitigate some of that imbalance that we find.
Yeah, and I mean, those are the big things, the big programs, but we also have other structures in place, like grade level meetings where all of the 7th grade teachers, for example, will meet and discuss how students are doing academically, socially, and emotionally. How can we help them as a team? Do we need to call in the parents? The school psychologists are in those meetings. And what I love about our school is that our school psychologists and a team of teachers and myself and Miss Owens too, we plan our advisory lessons together as a team with feedback from students, feedback from teachers, and those advisory lessons are a key place where we do prevention work. So social emotional lessons, students do a lot of reflection on their own progress academically, with their relationships, even their attendance, set goals. It's a small group of students, so it's only 10 students per classroom with one advisor. They really get to know each other well. On Fridays, a lot of times they'll play games. And then through playing games, the teacher is there working on those group dynamics, and they have fun. We also build community. We do celebration assemblies and advisories every day for 30 minutes in a very small group, with a group that we carefully choose for them to build skills and get to know one another.
Cool. And you also have And you also have a program that you call One Caring Adult, and I think that's also something that we can use and we do use strategically to manage these situations, these interpersonal conflicts that can devolve into bullying. Can you talk about that program a little bit?
Yeah, so, prevention work, I started by saying it comes from building trusting relationships. Bullying has a lot of power because it's usually hidden. So I think of an iceberg. There is a lot going on under that iceberg, and when there's bullying happening, all of the teasing and now we have it on social media is happening under this iceberg. And then when students don't have someone that they trust at school or an adult that they feel confident in sharing information with, then they're not getting the help that they need so that they can get out of really tough situations. And if they don't get help soon, the situation becomes big really fast, right? So the One Caring Adult program is to provide students a mentor. And that mentor starts a meeting with comments from every single teacher. So we really prepare for those meetings, those mentoring meetings. So let's say I'm mentoring a student, and every single staff member in the secondary school has mentors. I have mentors, every teacher, our curriculum coordinator, all of us mentor students. And the teachers help us prepare by writing a comment on the students. We call it glows and grows. So everybody has strengths, everybody has growth areas. We start the meeting by asking the student, what do you think your teacher said about your glows, what you're doing well? And they try to guess, but when we read every teacher comment, the student feels like they belong, they feel seen, they feel like they matter. And we start those meetings by saying, I chose you because I believe in you. And then that student really builds a relationship with that mentor. And a lot of the issues that we address are coming out of that partnership with the mentor. Gotcha. We, of course, ask the student, what do you think are your growth areas? And they usually get those right more than their glows. It's interesting how, as humans, sometimes we focus on our growth areas more than our strengths.
Yeah.
So we like to say that we have an asset-based mindset, strength-based leadership in our school so that students see what's really great in themselves already, so we can work from that into their growth. And it's really transforming things here in the secondary school with the trust and the relationship, and also students really improving academically, improving their attendance. Our partnership with the families is stronger because of the One Caring Adult program too.
Awesome. That's really cool. So I think it's probably reasonable to suppose, although it's hard to prove this, that there is less bullying happening at EAR because of all of these measures that we're trying to take to prevent it so that it doesn't actually happen. But sometimes it does. Like I said before, it is developmental. It happens in every school. It happens in every community. What do we do when it happens? How do we deal with it?
Yeah. Biggest thing and biggest ask is tell us in the beginning. Because doing things when the situation is not huge yet is a lot more effective. But what we do is we have a school psychologist that focuses on middle school and one that focuses on high school.
And that's new. We didn't used to have two psychologists, and that's been huge, having two people who can deal with these issues.
Yeah, new this year, and
Right.
it's been wonderful because the school psychologist and I and Miss Owens, all of our leadership team, we are in the students' break, in their lunch, in their passing periods, our presence. We go on trips with them to build that trust and that relationship. So step 0 is, if we don't have trusting and positive relationships with our students, they're not going to want to tell us things. And information is what we need first. So when a case is reported to us by a student, by a teacher, by anyone, a parent, parents have been great at telling us things right away here at EAR. I think they're seeing that once they report, we really care and we do something about it, and they're reporting more and more. I'm so grateful for them. And what we do is very careful and private, honestly, intake of information. So we will talk to everybody involved. We will talk to the friends of the group because a lot of times they want to help. And we
Yeah.
tell students, like, this is your friend. You love your friend and you want to help your friend. The way you help your friend is by giving us information. Because if we don't know, we can't help your friend. So it takes bravery from our students, and it takes repeated interventions that they see happen, and when they're helpful, they trust us more. But the information is the first step. We involve families in the conversation, and we ask families to come and report things to us and not with each other, because every parent has their own child's version of the story,
Right.
and one version of the story is never the complete version. So this information gathering process is super important, because oftentimes, I'm a kid, I'm gonna tell my dad something that happened, and I wouldn't tell my dad things in a way that are going to keep my relationship positive with my dad, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it's not going to be the full story. And because sometimes kids don't know the full story and their emotions are involved and
Yeah.
they're affecting the story. So once we have information, then we can move on to a restorative process, which is really our favorite. We want to teach students the skills that they need so that they have healthy relationships. So if somebody really has been bullying, a lot of times they're not well. We need to talk to that family. We need to get them support and help, because there might be a social emotional need there. A lot of times when I talk to students and they're bullying and we're at a point where information is all the way out there that they're saying, yeah, miss, I am doing these things. And I ask them, why are you doing this? Most common response is, I want to have friends. I want to be accepted. I want the boys to like me. I need to be funny to keep my relationships. And once we get to that point of awareness, then we can start moving into, sometimes it's building confidence. Sometimes there's something that happened in their past where they suffer bullying,
Right.
and remembering that and how it felt to grow some empathy. And it's been really transformative and helpful. And I think one thing I would tell parents is, if your child is going through something like that, talk to us. And sometimes our child is the one that's teasing, that's doing the bullying, and that's
Right.
really hard for parents too, because nobody wants that. So just be open with us, because we will help everybody. We have activities that they do for writing, and reflecting and writing, sitting with the psychologist, sitting with the parent. It's a big partnership. And one thing that we do is involve the teachers. So if there are students that sometimes they really need a break from each other because they've hurt each other in significant ways, so the teachers will separate them in the sitting chart. They won't have them work together, and we do this super privately. They're not going to say, oh, you two can't work together in a classroom.
Right.
We just make agreements. We'll make agreements with the person who is bullying, who's being bullied, and sometimes it's mutual. They're teasing each other in hurtful ways. So the students will sit down, and it could be done separately, where I am saying, oh, I agree that from now on I'm not going to use these words, or sometimes the agreement is, I'm not going to talk to this person for 2 weeks, and then we start to rebuild the relationship.
Right.
But the agreements are really important. They're shared with all parties. And then we've seen students feel a huge sense of relief when those things happen. But the thing that I think is hard for students is that it's really hard to take that first step to speak, because at first it does feel like retaliation is happening, or somebody is looking at me a certain way in the hallway because I reported something. And that can happen, but it does get better.
They're afraid it's going to get worse.
Yeah.
So you've been here for 2 years, almost. Have you seen a difference?
Oh, yes. I have seen a huge difference. It's been so much fun to watch this community grow into more positive relationships. I see a difference in how calm and quiet the hallways are during classes. The number of behavior referrals is much, much lower. We have better attendance, less tardiness. When there's confusion in the breaks, you're not going to go to class. You're going to go argue with somebody in the bathroom or do something like that. So the climate and the culture of the school has improved a lot. I'm not saying we don't have issues, because we do, but what's different at this time this year than when I first arrived last year is that we have the capacity and the time to get to every case and fully engage in the interventions every single time. And before, it was happening so often, and we didn't have that other psychologist, that there wasn't enough time to get to everything. We were more in reactive mode. We're definitely more in proactive mode, and we're getting to the issues that come to us. Every issue that comes to us, we are taking care of it. And I think we're seeing big results of that in the reputation of the school.
Yeah.
I keep hearing that more and more students want to come to EAR. You know, you're more aware than me of this. We have a couple of waitlist situations now. It's just really exciting that this is a place where parents know that we'll partner with them for their children to learn, but also to feel good and be happy and well.
Well, I can say, I mean, I speaking from my point of view, I certainly hear a lot about the good work that's happening in our secondary school under your leadership, but also work that's done directly by you. Work that our counselors are in Brazil, you call them psychologists, in the United States we call them counselors, but they kind of serve the same purpose, are doing amazing work as well. It feels like you've got an incredible team of teachers, of counselors, you know, Kelly and you, really tackling these issues. And it's hard work, it's emotional work. But it's making a big difference, and so I'm very thankful.
Thank you. And I really want to thank our teachers because they embraced everything and shared the issues even before I came here. Like, we do one caring adult and it's more work for them, and we do it during our meetings, but they say it's so rewarding. I have a wonderful relationship with the student in my classroom, and they embrace the grade level meetings, and you know, they submit forms before the meeting. The teachers are working tirelessly on our common goal for our students to be really well socially and emotionally, and it helps teachers because they're calmer and they're learning more in the classroom. But I'm just so proud of our team because everyone has embraced our initiatives, including something that can sound simple but is not, which is, you know, students being out of their phone, not having access to their phones during the day. They interact, they look at each other, they play ball, they stay in the cafeteria hanging out and really talking to each other and not looking at a screen. They walk around the hallway saying good morning to each other and not looking at a screen. And the parents have helped with that. We have the disconnect the movement now. Our partnership with the PTA, I think, also has helped with our anti-bullying campaigns and efforts at EAR.
Yeah, that's great. And that's something that's something maybe we can tackle in another podcast in the near future, because that whole disconnect the movement and what we're seeing with social media and with cell phones, I think, is really interesting. But I am very grateful, as I said, for you, for your team, for the work that you all have done with our students. It's made such a big difference. I hear it at home from my own children who are high schoolers. I hear it from other families and parents and kids. It's amazing work. It's hard work, but it's making a big difference.
Well, thank you, and thank you for bringing out the resources that we need, for advocating for trainings for all of us. It's been a lot of fun and really rewarding.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Fernanda, for joining us, and we'll see you guys in a couple of weeks.
All right.
Bye.